When I first began studying success, I quickly realized that the people who achieved extraordinary results weren't necessarily smarter or luckier. They were disciplined. They understood something simple yet profound. The day doesn't wait for you. If you fail to take control of the first moments of your life, those moments will control you. Either you run the day, or the day runs you. This isn't just a catchy phrase. It is a law of life. I've seen men and women, some barely scraping by, transform their entire existence by simply mastering the early hours, while others of equal talent languish because they give their mornings away to distractions. I learned early on that wealth, opportunity, and clarity don't arrive in the chaos of conscious routines. They arrive where discipline reigns. The strategy is straightforward but demands persistence. You must not rely on fleeting motivation. It's like trying to capture lightning in a bottle. Instead, engineer your mornings in such a way that motivation is built into the structure. A disciplined morning becomes the launching pad for the rest of the day. In my own life, I began waking up an hour earlier than necessary. At first, it felt unnatural, almost painful. But as I used that hour for reading, reflection, and setting daily goals, something extraordinary happened. My days began to flow with purpose. I started making choices aligned with the person I wanted to become, not the person my impulses wanted me to be. The clarity I gained in those early hours prevented me from drifting into poor financial choices, wasted energy, and unproductive habits. The practical steps are deceptively simple. First, wake up 1 hour earlier than your usual time, but don't squander that hour. Fill it with activities that expand your mind, reading something inspiring, reflecting on long-term goals, or visualizing the outcomes you desire. Second, begin each day with gratitude and intention. Too many people reach for their phones, scroll through the noise, and allow other people's priorities to set the tone for their lives. You must protect your first hour fiercely, because it dictates the energy, focus, and decisions for the next 12 hours. Third, make it a non-negotiable rule. Don't just try to fit discipline in when convenient. Build it as the foundation for every other achievement. I can attest, having done this for decades, that the wealth of your life, time, money, peace of mind, follows the discipline you cultivate when the world is still quiet and your mind is fresh. Master your mornings, and you master your life. I've always believed that the company you keep isn't just a reflection of who you are. It's a blueprint for who you're becoming. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. That's not a motivational bumper sticker. It is a law of human development. In my early years, I noticed that my own thinking and habits were directly influenced by the people I spent my evenings and weekends with. When I associated with those who were complacent, my own standards slipped. But when I intentionally sought out people who challenged, inspired, and pushed me beyond what I thought possible, I felt an invisible force pulling me upward. The wealthy understand this intuitively. They don't leave their growth to chance. They engineer their circles. The strategy is subtle but powerful. Your environment silently dictates your expectations, values, and even the size of your dreams. If you surround yourself with people who complain, blame, or settle for mediocrity, you will unconsciously absorb those attitudes. Conversely, if your circle consists of achievers, thinkers, and those who live by principle, you begin to internalize their discipline, ambition, and clarity. I remember a time when I committed to spending one evening each week with a mentor who had achieved far more than I imagined possible. Simply listening to his habits, questions, and perspectives reshaped my own thinking. I started asking myself, what would someone at that level do in this situation? And that question alone began to elevate my decisions and standards. Practical steps are clear and actionable. First, distance yourself from constant complainers and negative influences. This doesn't require drama, it requires conscious choice. Protect your mind and spirit as you would a treasure. Second, schedule time with mentors and high achievers. If you can't sit across a table with them, read their books, listen to recordings, or attend seminars where they speak. Even indirect association will influence your thinking. Third, let every relationship pull you upward, not downward. This means evaluating every connection by the question, does this person challenge me to be better or keep me comfortable? In my life, I've found that deliberate association accelerates growth faster than any amount of raw talent or effort alone. Your circle is the ladder to your future. Surround yourself wisely and watch your standards, and your results rise in tandem. I want you to consider something very simple, yet profoundly true. You can't have a positive life with a negative mind. Think about that for a moment. It's not your bank account, your job title, or your circumstances that ultimately shape your life. It's the inner dialogue that runs constantly in your mind. In my own journey, I noticed early on that when I allowed fear, doubt, or envy to linger, my actions became hesitant, my confidence eroded, and opportunities seemed smaller. But when I disciplined my thoughts, redirected them towards solutions, and focused on what I could control, I became a different person, and remarkably, my circumstances began to shift in response. The strategy here is clear. The wealthy are masters of their inner dialogue. They understand that the mind is the first marketplace of wealth. You can hand two people the same tools, the same resources, the same opportunities, and the one who controls their thoughts will thrive, while the one who succumbs to negativity will falter. Controlling your thoughts is not about pretending life is perfect. It's about refusing to let fear, doubt, or comparison dictate your actions. In my experience, I started keeping a small journal to track recurring negative thoughts, and I discovered patterns of self-sabotage I had never noticed. By observing and redirecting them, I gradually replaced mental friction with momentum. There are practical steps that make this invisible work tangible. First, take time daily to meditate or journal. Simply observing your thoughts and writing them down allows you to separate truth from fear, action from reaction. Second, replace complaints with gratitude immediately. I remember mornings when I felt frustrated with my circumstances, and I forced myself to list what was working, what I had accomplished, and who had helped me. Gratitude reshapes your perception and fuels motivation. Third, end each day by writing down 3 things you did well. Success attracts attention, but self-respect attracts opportunity. Recognizing your progress, even small victories, builds confidence, sharpens your focus, and trains your mind to seek solutions rather than dwell on obstacles. Your thoughts are the architects of your destiny. Control them deliberately, and you shape not only your mindset, but also the life that flows naturally from it. I want you to pause and consider this simple truth. Learn to be happy with what you have while you pursue what you want. It may sound easy, but mastering gratitude is one of the most overlooked yet powerful habits in wealth building. In my own life, I noticed that when I focused solely on what I lacked, money, recognition, or opportunity, I felt restless and frustrated, and my energy became scattered. But when I began to consciously appreciate what I already had, a remarkable thing happened. My perspective shifted, my relationships improved, and opportunities I hadn't noticed before seemed to appear naturally. Gratitude is not just a feel-good exercise, it's a financial habit, a mindset practice that turns scarcity into sufficiency and attracts abundance. The strategy is simple yet profound. The mind that appreciates attracts. A person consumed by discontent will struggle to see opportunities, and their energy repels collaboration, investment, and growth. The person who practices gratitude, however, builds momentum. Gratitude signals that you value what you have, which in turn opens your mind to more. In my own journey, I made it a point each morning to write down 3 things I was thankful for, no matter how small. At first, it seemed trivial, but over time, it rewired my mind to focus on solutions rather than problems, to see lessons instead of failures, and to recognize the richness already present in my life. There are practical steps to make this magnetic habit real. Start each day by writing down 3 things you're thankful for. Don't just think about them, capture them on paper, because the act of recording gratitude solidifies it in your mind. Second, express appreciation to one person daily. This could be a mentor, a colleague, or even a family member. Wealth begins in relationships, and expressing genuine gratitude strengthens the connections that open doors. Finally, focus on progress, not perfection. Too often, we ignore how far we've come while chasing what we have yet to achieve. By celebrating incremental growth, we maintain high energy and a positive mindset, which in turn fuels consistent action. Gratitude is not passive, it's active wealth building. It shifts your inner frequency, strengthens your resolve, and invites more abundance into your life. Start practicing it daily, and you will notice that the world begins to respond differently to the person you are becoming. I want you to hear this and let it settle deep. Don't wait for things to be perfect. Start where you are with what you have. This is a principle I've lived by, not just preached. In my early days, I often found myself hesitating, thinking I needed more knowledge, more connections, or the perfect plan before acting. The truth I learned, and I want you to understand, is that waiting for perfection is the enemy of progress. Opportunity favors the prepared, yes, but it also favors the brave, the ones willing to take imperfect action. Courage creates clarity. You see action, even small and imperfect, illuminates the path ahead, while waiting keeps you in the shadows of doubt. The strategy is deceptively simple act. Courage is built muscle, strengthened only through use. Every day you delay, every excuse you tell yourself, you allow fear and uncertainty to grow stronger. The wealthy, the successful, don't have fewer obstacles. They've simply learned to move anyway. When I first started speaking and building my seminars, I didn't have the ideal audience or the perfect script. I just had a desire to provide value and a willingness to begin. Each small step, making a phone call, scheduling a meeting, presenting one seminar, built confidence that compounded over time. Momentum grows only when you act. Here's how to put it into practice immediately. First, act on one idea within 24 hours. Don't overthink it. Take a single step, no matter how small, toward a goal or idea you've been contemplating. Action, even when imperfect, creates learning, adjustment, and growth. Second, say yes to one task or opportunity you've been procrastinating on. The longer you wait, the bigger it looms. Action reduces fear and builds certainty. Third, reward yourself not for the outcome, but for the effort. Too often, we tie self-worth to results instead of action. Recognizing your courage, your commitment to begin, strengthens your identity as a doer. Remember, fortune does not follow perfection. It follows persistence. The person who acts, who begins before they feel ready, begins the transformation that no amount of planning or waiting can produce. Start now, start small, but start, and watch as clarity, confidence, and opportunity chase you. Let me tell you something fundamental. If you can't see it in your mind, you'll never hold it in your hand. Every success story I've studied, every millionaire I've met, began by first seeing themselves in a way others could not yet see them. They became wealthy twice, first in imagination, then in reality. Before the bank account grows, before the contracts are signed, before the opportunities appear, the mind must become fluent in the language of possibility. I remember when I first envisioned my speaking career. I didn't have the stage, the audience, or the recognition. All I had was a vivid picture of the person I wanted to become: disciplined, confident, knowledgeable, and impactful. That image guided every choice I made, and eventually, reality aligned with it. The strategy is simple but powerful. Invest in your imagination as seriously as you invest in your work. Your mind is the blueprint for your life. Wealth, influence, and freedom are the natural outcomes of a mind trained to see them clearly and consistently. If your mental picture is fuzzy, your actions will be uncertain, and your results will wobble. But clarity in vision produces clarity in action. Every great achievement begins with a mental rehearsal. The athlete visualizes the perfect play. The artist envisions the masterpiece. The entrepreneur sees the thriving business before it exists. Here's how to bring this into your daily life. Spend 10 minutes each morning visualizing your ideal self. Not just the possessions or status, but the habits, the posture, the discipline, the way you carry yourself. Feel the confidence, hear the words you'll speak, imagine the reactions of those around you. Then, speak your vision out loud each day. The human mind responds to words spoken with conviction. Saying your vision aloud cements it in both your conscious and subconscious mind. Finally, align your daily choices with that mental image. Every decision, how you spend your time, what you read, whom you associate with, should be a reflection of that future self. Over time, this alignment becomes natural, and the person you imagine becomes the person you are. Remember, imagination is not fantasy, it is pre-experience. The richer, more detailed, and more consistent your visualization, the faster your mental vision manifests in your reality. Start today, see yourself clearly, act accordingly, and your future will inevitably find you. Mastering your habits is the cornerstone of mastering your life. As I've often said, success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. It's not some grand stroke of luck or a sudden windfall that makes someone wealthy. It's the small, consistent actions taken in silence that compound over time. I've seen countless people with brilliance and potential fail because they lacked the structure to support their talent. Conversely, I've watched ordinary individuals achieve extraordinary results simply because they adhered to a few key disciplines consistently. Your destiny is written in your daily habits, whether you realize it or not. The strategy is straightforward. Examine the routines that define your life and understand that what you repeatedly do becomes who you are. Wealth doesn't arrive from one heroic effort. It grows quietly, invisibly, from daily decisions. If you invest consistently, even modest amounts, over decades, the compounding effect turns small beginnings into significant outcomes. The same principle applies to personal growth. Reading 10 pages a day, practicing a skill for 20 minutes, or reflecting quietly each morning may feel inconsequential in the moment. Yet these actions accumulate into extraordinary competence and results. Here's how you can implement this immediately. Start by identifying one habit that's costing you, perhaps excessive social media, impulsive spending, or procrastination, and replace it this week with a habit that builds your future. Don't attempt to overhaul your life overnight. Focus on incremental improvement. Next, create a morning and evening ritual that centers your discipline and gratitude. Begin each day with reflection, reading, or planning, and end it with gratitude and assessment. These rituals frame your day, giving your actions purpose and direction. Finally, track your habits daily. Record your wins and your slips. You cannot improve what you do not measure. Even small awareness creates accountability and accelerates change. I learned early in my life that character, discipline, and habit are the invisible architecture of wealth. You may not notice progress day to day, but over months and years, the disciplined life produces freedom, confidence, and abundance. Remember, your habits are not merely actions, they are statements of identity. When you commit to better habits, you are effectively saying, I am the kind of person who handles wealth growth and opportunity responsibly. Master your habits and you master your life. Guarding your attention is just as critical as guarding your wallet. You see, whatever you feed your mind will eventually feed your life. The thoughts you entertain, the information you consume, and the distractions you allow will shape the trajectory of your future just as surely as the money you invest or the work you put in. I've often observed that people are willing to protect their cash, but casually surrender their focus to mindless chatter, endless scrolling, and trivial distractions. Attention is the new currency. Where it flows, energy follows. If you do not deliberately guard it, it will be spent on things that produce little return and leave you poorer in growth, wisdom, and opportunity. The strategy is simple yet rarely practiced. Protect your mind like it is the most valuable account in your life. The wealthy understand that knowledge, skill, and personal growth compound over time, just like money. When you feed your attention to these things, your capacity grows, doors open, and opportunities appear. Conversely, if you scatter your focus on gossip, fear, and trivial entertainment, your mind becomes cluttered, and your life mirrors that chaos. It is not enough to simply hope for clarity. You must structure your environment to support it, creating conditions where deep thinking, learning, and deliberate action are prioritized. Practical steps to implement this are immediate and actionable. Begin by deleting distractions that steal your focus, unnecessary apps, endless notifications, and mental noise. Simplify your environment so your mind isn't constantly hijacked by the trivial. Next, schedule deep work sessions daily, uninterrupted time blocks where you focus on creating value, learning, or solving problems. Guard this time as you would a financial investment because its returns are far greater than money alone. Finally, pause before consuming any content or engaging in any activity and ask, is this making me richer in knowledge, skill, or spirit? If it isn't, it doesn't deserve your attention. I have lived long enough to see that mastery of attention precedes mastery of life. When you protect your focus, you cultivate patience, creativity, and foresight, all the ingredients of wealth and fulfillment. The person who can command their attention commands their destiny. Guard it fiercely, because what you feed your mind today determines the wealth of your tomorrow. Emotional stability is one of the most underrated forms of wealth. You must learn to discipline your disappointment. And I have found through a lifetime of observation that the person who can govern their emotions holds a power that money alone cannot buy. Life, in its infinite complexity, will challenge you at every turn. Setbacks, failures, delays, and disappointments will appear whether you are ready or not. The difference between those who fail and those who flourish is not luck or opportunity. It is the capacity to remain calm, composed, and rational in the face of adversity. Wealthy people are not immune to difficulties, but they have trained themselves to respond with clarity, not chaos. The strategy is rooted in self-mastery. Life will test your emotions before it trusts you with success. It is easy to be confident when everything is going your way, but the true measure of character is steadiness under pressure. Those who react impulsively, who let fear, anger, or envy drive decisions, often sabotage their own progress. On the other hand, the person who can pause, reflect, and respond deliberately turns every setback into a lesson and every challenge into an opportunity. Emotional stability is the secret currency that allows you to execute strategy without distraction, make better decisions, and maintain relationships that multiply your influence and wealth over time. Practical steps to cultivate this superpower begin with pausing before reacting. When faced with a setback, resist the urge to respond immediately. Take a moment, breathe, and reflect on the bigger picture. This pause creates space for wisdom and prevents regretful actions. Next, practice calm during chaos. Train yourself in small ways. Maintain composure in traffic, in disagreement, in minor frustrations. Strength is quiet, and the habits you form in small trials prepare you for larger ones. Finally, journal your emotional triggers. Record what upsets you, why it upsets you, and how you responded. Over time, patterns emerge, allowing you to anticipate, understand, and manage reactions more effectively. I have watched men and women who mastered this quietly become unstoppable. Their decisions are measured, their presence commanding, and their results inevitable. Money follows the composed mind because calm decisions compound better than frantic ones. Remember, emotional stability is not a trait you are born with. It is a skill you build daily. Treat it as seriously as you treat your savings, because the wealth of your character will ultimately determine the wealth of your life.